he was sentenced to death by crucifixion. But according to a story passed down nearly 2,000 years after 48 hours of unimaginable agony and pain, the crowd wasn't cheering for his death. They were demanding his freedom. The story claims a Roman governor was left powerless as an entire city felt captivated by the words of a dying man. But when finally given the chance to live, he refused. This is the incredible story of how the Apostle Andrew, in his final moments, is said to have turned his own execution into his most powerful sermon. It's a narrative that has echoed through centuries. While the core of his life as one of the 12 apostles is completely found in the Bible, the dramatic and cinematic details of his final days come to us from later non-biblical sources like the Acts of Andrew and the Golden Legend. These texts are filled with miraculous accounts that have inspired believers for generations. So what could a man in the depths of his agony say that would cause an entire city to rally for his freedom? And why in the end did Andrew refuse to be saved? To understand Saint Andrew, we need to go back, way back. Before he was a martyr, Andrew was a fisherman from Bethsaida, living a humble life with his brother Simeon, who later was called Peter in the Bible. But Andrew was also a seeker. He was a disciple of the very fiery preacher John the Baptist, waiting for the promised Messiah. According to the Gospel of John, one day John the Baptist saw Jesus walk by and said, "This is the Lamb of God who will take away the sins of this world." That was all Andrew needed to hear. He and another disciple immediately followed Jesus. After spending the day with him, Andrew was so convinced that he rushed to find his brother, Simon. Not Simeon, sorry, I said Simeon at the beginning, but it's Simon. And said, "We have found the Messiah." It's for this reason that in the Eastern Orthodox tradition, Andrew is honored as a protokletos, which means first called in Greek. He was a catalyst for the calling of the apostles by bringing his brother. Although he's not mentioned often, Andrew was always there, quietly facilitating pivotal moments in the Bible. For example, you know the story with the loaves and the bread, the loaves and the fish. When a crowd of 5,000 people was hungry, it was Andrew who pointed out the boy with the loaves and the fish. They ended up feeding the 5,000. After Christ's ascension, the apostles went out to spread the message. While Peter and Paul journeyed west, Andrew traveled east, the exact opposite direction. He preached through Asia Minor and Scythia, which later on became Greece, Ukraine, and Russia, healing the sick and establishing churches wherever he went. His journey eventually led him to the city of Patras in the Roman province of Achaia in modern-day Greece. And his mission would face the ultimate test. In Patras, Andrew's message resonated deeply with the people. Especially from the Golden Legend, we know many miracles and conversions happened because of Andrew in the city of Patras. Most notably, these converts were said to include Maximilia, who was the wife of the proconsul Aegeas, and Stratocles, who was the brother of the proconsul. Yes, his own brother. This intersection of history, faith, and legend is what makes these stories so powerful. If you agree, take a moment to subscribe and click the bell icon so you don't miss what's not coming next. But as you can probably imagine, this success did not go unnoticed. The proconsul, Aegeas as we call him, was enraged. This foreign preacher wasn't just a religious figure. He was a political threat, undermining Roman authority and convincing people, and now get this, including his own wife and brother, to abandon their faith, their Roman pagan gods, and to start worshipping Jesus. Now Aegeas took Andrew and demanded he stop preaching and sacrifice to the Roman idols. But obviously Andrew refused, and he boldly confronted the governor, reportedly saying, "It would be wise," get this, "it would be wise for someone who judges men, to know the one who is his judge." You get it, the one who lives in heaven. Now he preached that the Roman gods were nothing but idols, and that Aegeas himself was being deceived as a proconsul, okay, the ruler. Now obviously fuming, Aegeas threatened Andrew with the most brutal death the Roman had, crucifixion. But Andrew's response was fearless. "I would not preach the honor and glory of the cross if I feared the death of the cross." And with that, the sentence was passed. But Aegeas, in his cruelty, supposedly devised a way to make punishment even more severe and more brutal. Because Aegeas wanted to prolong the suffering, he ordered his soldiers not to nail Andrew on the cross, but to tie him with ropes. This was designed to prevent a quicker death from shock or bleeding, or a heart attack, making sure he would suffer for days from exhaustion and exposure. Because Andrew didn't feel like he was worthy enough to be crucified like Jesus, he asked if he could be crucified on an X-shaped cross. And this X-shaped cross would forever become known as his St. Andrew's cross. As he was led to his execution, he didn't struggle. He didn't resist. He didn't backfire. He didn't do anything. Upon seeing the cross, Andrew greeted it like a long-lost friend, saying, "O good cross, take me from these men to my Maker, to the one who redeemed me." And I got goosebumps as I first read this. For 2 full days and nights he hung on that cross, alive and fully conscious, but he wasn't silent. He turned his public execution into a non-stop sermon. From that cross, he preached to the growing crowds about love, redemption, and the meaning of suffering. He explained the mystery of the cross, not as an instrument of shame, but as a gateway to glory. The atmosphere among the crowd began to shift. They had come to see a criminal die, but they stayed to listen to a sage's final words. According to the golden legend, their pity turned into sympathy, and sympathy boiled into outrage. How could this wise man be subjected to such torture and such a death penalty? Soon thousands were gathered, their voices rising in a single unified demand. "This man is innocent. Take him down." Apparently the public's outcry grew so loud it reached the governor's palace. Now terrified from the crowd that the mob would storm his residence, Aegeas finally gave in. He rushed to the crucifixion site and ordered his soldiers to untie Andrew. The torment was over. Now, the government had been defeated by the will of the people. But shockingly, Andrew refused his own rescue. As the soldiers approached, Andrew stopped them, praying aloud for God not to let him be taken down from the cross. He saw his martyrdom not as a tragedy, but as the fulfillment of his mission, his final and most powerful act of witness. He had longed to embrace the cross and now just wouldn't let go of it. As he spoke his final words, and as he died basically, a huge bright light enveloped him and the cross, and was shining for apparently half an hour. The light was so bright that no one could look at it. This heavenly light was said to have lasted for half an hour, and when it finally faded, Andrew was gone and his 2-day sermon was complete. The aftermath was that Aegeas was apparently driven mad by guilt and died a wretched death. Some say he was demon possessed, some say it was because of guilt and shame. We don't know for sure, but basically Maximilia, his own wife, who embraced Andrew's faith, took his body and gave it a reverent burial. Historians are quick to point out that the most dramatic details of Andrew's final 2 days, the prolonged sermon, the crowd's intervention, and the miraculous light, are found in the apocryphal text written a century or more after the events. So it wasn't read live while this was happening, but centuries later. But whatever, like, the strength of this story is undeniable. They have shaped the legacy of the first called apostle, the Apostle Andrew, for millennia, illustrating a profound truth about faith, that deep conviction can transform an instrument of torture into a pulpit and an execution into a victory. Andrew's legacy obviously endured. The Christian community in Patras said to be solidified and strengthened by his sacrifice. They continue to grow. And this X-shaped cross was not just a mere sign of humility, but it became an icon on the flag of Scotland and many other flags and symbols. The story of Andrew challenges us with a timeless question. In a world that often fears suffering above all else, what does it mean to embrace one's cross? Because many Christians run away from their cross. Let's face it. It is what it is, bro. Many Christians are afraid of the cross and they start to avoid pain. But true strength isn't found in avoiding pain, but in finding a purpose that gives it meaning. God bless.